Welcome to the In Hope Podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Preach.
And I'm Brandon, and each week we drop an episode to strengthen unity in the body of Christ.
We want you to be part of the conversation, so make sure you like, share, subscribe, and let's talk.
Welcome back to the In Hope Podcast, guys. Today we wanted to talk a little bit about a touchy subject of stealing sheep. A touchy subject. Of stealing sheep. Maybe you've heard this term before. You know, this is interesting because we just talked a little while ago about that role of a shepherd and what that looks like, and that idea of shepherds and sheeps within the church. And the reason we did that is because we were sharing how the focus, the goal of this podcast is to equip young leaders to shepherd the church away from division and towards unity. And so as we look at this concept of, you know, ministry leaders being shepherds and guiding the sheep, the flock, the sheep, Christ sheep, right? That's what he calls us. There's this term that some people are familiar with called stealing sheep.
Stealing sheep.
Stealing sheep. Brandon, what's stealing sheep?
I'm just imagine like a football player like picking up a sheep under its arms.
I know, right?
Going out with it. Yeah, let's go.
More like a basketball player dribbling a sheep, right? Like dribbling a little wool covered ball, and then somebody coming up and stealing it.
First of all, I think it's hard for people to be identified as sheep, but that's just it's actually a pretty good analogy.
We just gotta deal with it, guys. We're stinky.
We need help. We need to be shepherded. So just accept it for a minute as we talk about this. And I've come to accept that term a lot more in my the longer I've been in my walk, and the more I see how much I needed God, actually. And sometimes that's not very obvious to us, especially early on. And I feel like that as you and then you even start doing a little. But anyway, so stealing sheep, that's the idea that we're just taking sheep from one church to another church. We're just moving people from one place to another. And that can be, I think there's a bad and good, there's an intentional stealing of sheep versus just people just move, like shepherds, sheep just like to graze in different places, right? So to speak. So there's kind of a difference to be made there as to which one we're talking about and what's okay and what's not okay.
Yeah.
So we just want to kind of talk about how that relates to unity in the church.
Yeah.
And what. So I would like to start with probably what looks okay to me.
Okay.
That sometimes it doesn't look okay to some people.
Yeah.
Which is that people are going to go from one church to another. And where I saw this the most was I was in youth ministry for years.
Yeah.
And one of the actually, just to kind of presuppose that a little bit, the good things about us being in unity with other churches and knowing who our competitors are. They're not competitors, but it can feel that way sometimes when we're talking, especially when we're talking about stealing each other's sheep. There can be this competitive nature that just comes out, human nature. But when you know who the other people so I'm not going to call them competitors because they're not. The other ministers are that are supposed to be working alongside us to minister to the entire world, or communities in this kind of more specific manner, then you're less threatened by them when this happens.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes people are going to move from one place to another, and a lot of times it has nothing to do with the actual church itself. And even if it does, I think we need to just have a little more leeway with these kind of things, because sometimes, especially in like youth ministry, it's just like a relationship thing. It's like, well, there's this girl that I met at school that goes to this other youth group, so I'm going to go to that youth group now because there's this girl there. And we are moved by different things to go to different places, and
usually they're not going to tell their youth pastor that.
Yeah, and they're not going to be like, "Youth pastor, yeah, Brandon, I just really like this I like God, but I like girls more. No.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just part of reality, right? Like there's these relationship things that, or it's even like just a friend.
Yeah.
My daughter actually started going to 2 youth groups because she started one and that's her youth group, but then
Yep.
she met someone that goes to another one and they become friends and she wants to go to that one as well.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're just at the person in the leadership position of being the pastor and you're like trying to shepherd this flock, you can get a little bit defensive about where they go, and you want to make sure that they're there. And so when you hear that they're somewhere else, our feelings get hurt and stuff, which is human nature. So I don't fault anybody for that. But also we need to understand that as long as they're in good hands,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where the unity piece comes in. When I know who that other youth pastor is. So there was another guy that we shared some kids back and forth sometimes, and I was like, well, I know him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very confident that they're in good hands there, as good a hands there, maybe better hands there than they are with me. And so when, and when we know that, it really helps.
Yeah.
It helps us to stay more in unity and not start flinging. It's like, you steep, I'm a steep stealer. No, you sheep stealer over there. What are you doing? Taking my people. And so we just need, and having those conversations and being able to even talk to the other person, the other youth pastor, the other church. And so this happens in youth ministry, but also happens in adult ministry, right?
Absolutely.
And there's any number of reasons why people will switch churches or do something different.
Yep. No, absolutely. And I've seen that. I've seen adults do it. I've seen children, kids. Something that we didn't say specifically, but you brought up even with your daughters that now she's attending too, right?
Yeah.
And this is something that we see more and more now with people who attend church. They will attend or regularly, whether it's regularly watch, attend more than one church. Like they have multiple different churches that church that you could say they're a part of. So it's interesting because, like you said, as ministers, there can be that inclination and like that natural feeling of wanting to guard and make sure that they're okay, that they're staying connected to your church family, and that they're not drifting away, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so that can be tough, but it helps. I think it helps big time if there is unity and communication between those pastors. If there is a good, healthy relationship between those pastors, that can be very helpful. And now you think of it, for example, I mean, with yourself and the other pastor that you knew, and you guys had a few students that would go to both, your daughter and her attending multiple, right? If you think about it now, when they've gone from one to attending 2 different regularly, now you have 2 pastors that can speak into their life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's to me that's like one, right? For my daughter going to both, I'm like, sure, go to 2.
Exactly.
That's fine. That's great. Yeah, go to 2. I love for you to get more.
Right. And so I mean, you think about this as parents, right? If you're a parent, you want there to be other adults that you can have speaking into your kids' lives that are positive role models speaking into their lives. Well, as a minister, you should say the same thing for their sheep, that you want other positive role models speaking into their lives as well. And so look at that as that opportunity where there's maybe this isn't a issue, but this is a opportunity for this person to have multiple role models speaking into their life, especially as long as you guys aren't contradicting each other, right?
Yeah.
And
I think that's where it gets a little more spicy, right?
Exactly. That's where it can get a little more spicy, is when you guys are starting to contradict each other. So but if you, like you said, Brandon, like you knew the other pastor, you're like, they're in good hands there, man. Now you have twice as much being poured in to these people.
Yeah, which is just such a testament of a reason to know the other churches, to not just be a siloed church congregation, because the church is the big church.
Exactly.
Like the church is the people of God.
Yeah.
And so knowing more than just your local one group gathering, I like to call one group center,
one gathering.
Knowing who your other brothers and sisters are is so helpful, because and I think it's helpful even for other reasons, like knowing who is preaching the good word and who is maybe veering off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a whole separate topic, but there's the more we do that together, the more we can help each other, and iron can sharpen iron on that level as well as like the individual level.
Absolutely. No, yeah. So that's really good. I think there's obviously there can be pros and cons to it. Maybe you feel like, well, this person's floating around and they're not planted, like they're not connected and building community. And then that's a good conversation to have with them, but it shouldn't be from the aspect of you need to stop going to these other churches so that you can be planted here.
Right.
But it should be from the aspect of, for example, regular language that we use within our church is that we believe discipleship happens in meaningful relationship and deep meaningful relationship, not just attending services, not just, consuming Christian content. So where are your deep meaningful relationships? Where are you putting yourself? Where you are developing deep meaningful relationships? And does that mean you need to pull back on some of what you're consuming, some of the content, places you're visiting, so that you have more space to develop deep meaningful relationship?
Well, maybe we could talk through some of the pros and the cons, because I think it is good for people to hear the cons of being like a church hopper.
Yeah.
Because I think there are cons.
Oh,
to
absolutely.
that, for sure.
Yeah, especially if you're hopping, if you don't even have a home church, it's just do it.
Yeah, so there's cons to that. But how do we do this in a really good way where we're not fighting over where someone's going? But also, I think trying to disciple people into why.
Exactly.
And just I always like the seeking first to understand.
Yes.
I think we don't do enough of that, especially in these kind of situations. Like, that person or we hear a rumor maybe, or about why someone is at a different place.
Yep.
And instead of going to the person and actually asking them, we just kind of go off the rumor, which is gossip, which that doesn't ever lead to anything good. So that'd be a con from that side of it. And so I think that happens. And, but I think if I was to say just to hit one of those cons of being like a church hopper, because I think this is important for us to talk about, is that, you don't get that community, as deep. It's harder to get deep if you're bouncing around.
Exactly.
It's harder to have those people that you're really getting into close relationship with, when you're jumping
and that's
around.
Important, as we were talking about.
If you watch the last episode on discipleship.
Yeah, we were just talking about another episode about discipleship and how that's deep relationship. If you haven't listen to that, check that out. Last episode.
Yeah, so that's something you can miss out on. I think sometimes people will church hop because of conflict. And what that is actually a lack of discipleship oftentimes, because there's not the learning how to go through conflict in a biblical way. And work through some of those things. And so, and that's not, and sometimes it's not going to work out, sometimes it doesn't, but oftentimes it can be just like an avoidance type thing. And that's not necessarily healthy or good for anybody.
No.
So that's where I maybe say that's a con. Maybe if you feel like you have to jump to a lot of different churches, maybe there's something deeper that needs to be worked on. I don't know. I'm not saying that's the case if that's you listening to this, but maybe there's something that can happen deeper, that may take some work or something of working through a conflict or something. And I know the reason I say stuff like that is because I know my own personality was an avoider of conflict for many years.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm somewhat of a, like I can speak to it because that was me. Where I would maybe be in that situation where I was like, well, it'd be a lot easier to just not talk to that person and go somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I don't think we did that a lot or anything, but I just know that even just the relationships within the church, it's like, well, I can just go to this other group over here that's in our church rather than deal with that one. And so, and that's a big unity piece, right? If we're not able to deal with conflict, we're going to struggle to have unity.
Absolutely.
You know? And that's just something I've learned over time of getting discipled, like we talked about in our last episode, and going through that process of learning what that means to even have like a biblical look at conflict and work through those things. Mm-hmm. And so that'd be a con, I think, to jumping in that way.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm hearing somebody over here. I don't know if they're typing it into the comments. Maybe I can make them erase this. But I mean, we encourage you guys to comment. But I'm thinking this thought is coming.
You're having
mind,
you're having a little.
And I don't know if this is somebody listening.
Foretelling. Yes.
Where somebody's like, well, it's not really conflict. It's just, you know, we don't agree on some things. We come to understand we just disagree, and I want to go somewhere where, you know, I can agree. I can be behind this or that. Sometimes that's a good reason. Sometimes, especially if it's, you know, something that's very theological, convicting, whatever it may be. Sometimes that's a good reason. Maybe it's practices that you want to be a part of a church that practices certain things, and so I mean, I can understand. But if you're saying you're going to leave the church because you guys disagree about the carpet color,
that's a light one.
If you're saying I'm leaving because we disagree on having this one event or not, we disagree on trunk or treat, on keeping trunk or treat going, or doing, you know, some other type of event there. So if it's something like that, then there's more to this. And this is part of that character development where Brandon's saying, like, we need to really, like, consider there may be something that we need to grow in. This may be a character development area where you need to grow in being in submission to another leader and not getting your way.
Oh, people hate that word.
Just saying.
That'll be people will be like, oh, I don't like that word.
Look. I'm gonna make it one better. When I say submission, it's not submission until you disagree.
Yeah.
If you have been in agreement and so you've been good, but now all of a sudden there's something you disagree
going along
on
with, and they're submitting to authority. Yeah. Yeah.
Come on now. If all of a sudden you're not getting your way, somebody's challenging you and you don't want to deal with it. And sometimes we gloss it over. We cover it up because it's like we make a big deal out of the carpet. We make a big deal out of this event. We can even tie in all the theological reasons of they're getting rid of the red carpet, and the red carpet represented the blood of the Christ, and they're trying to replace it with black. Black is darkness. Black is evil.
Oh my gosh.
Right? And so we can come up with all these different reasons, right? And it's like we used to have different event, and now they're trying to do a trunk or treat, and now that's getting too close to Halloween, and like your last event had all the candy and stuff too, guys. So let's last event people were still showing up dressed up, same.
And it's like did you? Here's the thing on that, is like, did you actually have a conversation about it?
Yeah. Well,
or did you just see that it was a thing and then be like, I'm out of here?
And even if you had a conversation about it and it didn't go your way, I really want to challenge you on whether or not it's that, if that's the issue or it's something deeper. If it's a character or a discipleship matter where you need to grow and being in submission, being able, not getting your way. If there's maybe some other things, because really a lot of times what it is, it's like the toothpaste cap in a marriage. Yeah. It's the same thing as the toothpaste cap in a marriage. When you're getting into a huge blow up fight and yelling and slamming doors and throwing stuff because somebody left the cap off the toothpaste.
Yeah.
You ain't fighting about no cap on the toothpaste. There's a whole lot of other stuff going on there that you guys have not addressed, right?
Yep.
And so it's one of those things to where if you're having those kind of issues and that's why you're trying to leave, we need to figure out where is this coming from? Because that could be an area where you need to grow as a disciple. And when we say grow as a disciple, that's not just a matter of, well, I need to study more, but no, this is an area where you need to grow in the fruit of the spirit of patience, grow in the discipleship skill of following and being in submission, where you need to grow in mercy, you need to grow in compassion, you need to grow in these different areas that scripture encourages time and time again to practice. And maybe you're somewhere where you ran from the last one, even though you didn't see it as a run. And you left from the one before that, even though maybe you didn't see it as you're running away or anything, but you're in a space now where you're looking at leaving because of a disagreement. And I want you to really consider and ask others whether or not that disagreement is worth leaving over, and don't build it up. Don't come in with well, they're changing the red carpet. I just want you to say they're changing the carpet from red to black, and I'm thinking about leaving because of that. I don't want you to come in with they're taking Jesus out of the church. They're removing all signs of the blood of the Lamb. And so I'm thinking about I have to go because they're inviting darkness.
Did this happen to you? I want to know. I want to know if this is a real thing.
Look, after decade, you've been in ministry for for a few years.
I mean, we removed red carpet once, but we didn't have that fight.
You hit 10 years in ministry, and you got some stories. All right, you've heard some stuff.
Yeah, you've heard some stories. Yeah.
So I'm just saying, consider, and invite others into that conversation on whether or not maybe it's something deeper that we need to work out. Yeah. Because what you don't want, whether or not people are leaving peacefully or not, well, I shouldn't say or not, whether or not you're leaving peacefully, right? What you don't want is to keep carrying something to another place that God's trying to grow you in.
Yeah, some things aren't going to change just because you change locations.
Exactly.
Well, I always like that. If how does it go? There's a saying about that. It's just like wherever you go, there you are.
Oh, there it is.
And if it's within you,
yep.
If the challenge is within you, you can go anywhere else and you'll still be there.
Exactly.
And so if you have people, and if you don't have people willing to work through that with you at your church, then that's a different story, right?
Yeah.
But if you're willing to be challenged and to learn something and be humble enough to receive something, there's no better time than now.
Yeah. And I pray that you do not get to just move to another location and all of a sudden, or I shouldn't say all of a sudden, I pray you do not get to move to another location and others allow you to sit in that place of not growing past that issue.
Yeah.
I pray that you don't move to another location and you start getting your way because the other location fears letting you go for some reason. Because that is not helping you grow as a disciple.
Yeah.
So that just stick it out. Sometimes you gotta sit on it for a minute. But we got into this tangent about people leaving.
But then we
we want to talk about people stealing. People stealing sheep. People aren't just leaving because they decided to leave, but they got wooed. They got what is it? Seduced.
So that's another. Here we're talking about the negative of the other way, right? Because there's just the transfer of people move around sometimes, but then there's I'm actually going to try to take that person.
Come on now,
from that church, which is different.
This ear tickling viper tongue came in and took my sheep. So what's all that about?
What's that all about? I haven't actually experienced this a whole lot. Thankfully, I haven't seen a lot of churches like specifically stealing someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I have heard of it, I think, more than I've experienced it myself. So I don't know if you have this experience more than I do, but
I have an experience of you can probably relate to this in youth ministry. I have an experience in youth ministry, saw it with adults as well, but I'm thinking of one specifically in youth ministry where I think some people would have saw it as stealing.
Mm-hmm.
I think some people would have said, "Oh yeah, they were stealing sheep." And I would say even before that student left, this other to another ministry, that the people running that ministry had been accused of stealing sheep before. And so I think that's what that would have played right into it, and they would have been, they're at it again, they're stealing sheep. And so I've had an experience with that in that regard. I think one of the most beneficial things was not to take it personal.
Yeah.
I think
what do you think the primary reason a ministry, I have my thoughts on this too, but another ministry would want to steal a sheep is?
Do you want me to give you the positive, like the optimistic, or the
either?
Okay, I'm just gonna give you both then. All right. So the optimistic side of it is that they love and value that person. They love them. They see them as valuable. They have a good relationship with them, or are starting a good relationship with them. And so they see value and worth in that person.
Yeah,
they see them as they should. Right. And with this view, it's not, hey, you need to leave your church and come to our church, but it's just they have a relationship and they value this person. They tell them, like I think any gathering of believers should, that they enjoy them being there. They want to see them more, right? Right?
Yeah.
But they're not saying leave your church and come to our church, but they're loving on them. And so that happens. And they want them. So that happens as they should want people like them around, right? In their community. On the negative side of it, it's a numbers game.
Yeah.
On the negative side of it, it's a numbers game. And this is important because I want those who, both the people stealing the sheep and the people who feel like their sheep are being stolen, you need to ask yourself how much of your view and how much of your discomfort is being driven by the numbers.
Yeah. Well, if you're stealing, if you're on the stealing side of that, why? Like, what is your real goal? If your goal has become numbers,
it's to get people,
but it's people who are already in ministry to some degree, then that's not the goal that God gave you.
Those are easier sometimes. That's not the goal God gave you. Yeah, that's not the goal God gave you. He said to go, right? Go make disciples. You're supposed to be reaching unreached people, bring people into the church, right? You're trying to get people saved, right? But church growth is undeniably a lot of times driven by transfer. Transfer plays a huge role in church growth.
And to some degree, I think that's actually purposeful.
Yeah. And that's why I say they would be saying that these are people they can get from that congregation over to their congregation.
Yeah.
And they're going to make it happen. And they're not concerned about the other congregation. How that's going to affect them.
The challenge, right?
They're just, and if anything, that makes it where they're more tempting to steal because they're coming pre-evangelized.
Yeah, it's easier work. But that's it doesn't make sense though. Right?
It doesn't make sense if you're thinking. Yeah, if you're thinking just
does make sense.
We're reaching unreached.
Yeah, where it makes sense is, a brand new church plant. They need some mass. They need people to help put into to build that church up because that's the only way we multiply.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense to have this transfer of people. And we've done this as a church, and that happened to us when we were planting our church. Is there was like specific asks from the pastor, say, hey, if you want to go help this church get on their feet, we'd love for you to go. And that's more like, intentional and on the up and up, so to speak.
Exactly.
And so, and that needs to happen to some degree, oftentimes, especially like when, this church has, 50 musicians and this one's only got 2, and they're trying to like put together worship teams and they don't have the people to do it. And so there's a sharing of resources that can happen there. That's really great and beneficial to the church as a whole. And when we can see it that way, that's good. Yeah. But then there's the kind of the back door, like, well, I'm just going to call that person and not tell anybody else in the church about it. And I'm just going to do, because I need that. And I have somewhat of a relationship with them. So I'm just going to use that to get what I want, because we need it. And that could be a real, that's kind of cutting God out of the process, right? Because anytime we're trying to build a church, we want God to be the builder.
Mm-hmm. If you are doing anything in secret, then you need to take a step back.
Yeah, you need to think about what that is and why you're doing it, and where your trust is. Is your trust in your ability to build it, or is your trust in that God's going to build His church, and that if you do things in His way, it'll happen because His goal is the same goal as your goal.
Exactly.
Ultimately. And so He wants to build it. So if he needs people to move to your church from another church to help it happen, He's going to do that.
Yep.
Because those are the people He's got influence over.
Exactly.
And so, that's good.
Yeah.
I lied. I do have an experience with this before. Before. Yeah, I forgot about that. I didn't lie. I just forgot.
No,
which is funny. It's weird that I forgot, but I have had that happen where someone was disgruntled and they tried to take people with them when they left, and that was very hurtful.
Yeah,
and I didn't understand why we couldn't have a conversation about it. Yeah, because we didn't. There was no conversation to be had.
Oh yeah,
and so I think that's where I said that even earlier. It probably was just remembering without remembering. Like, we just need communication.
Yeah.
The more we can communicate, like why someone is leaving with the other church that they're going to, and all those things, it's like, well, why can't we talk to each other?
Yeah.
Because sometimes there might be a really valid reason, but a lot of times you can work through those things if you just talk it out.
Exactly. And a lot of times, and I shouldn't say a lot of times, sometimes you can go through the effort of trying to talk through those things. And I mean, we're being honest, we're dealing with people. Sometimes people are just going to dig their heels in. And they're going to...
At least then you've done that step.
Yeah, you've done that step. If they're going about things in an ungodly way and causing division, then that's something they're going to have to answer God for.
Yeah.
And that's scary.
Yeah, that is scary.
I mean, let's just be honest. That's scary. There is, was it Polycarp? I think it was Polycarp who was addressing the Corinthians. And when writing the Corinthians, he said he's referring them to what Paul wrote about them being a body and the unity within the body of Christ. And he tells them, he reminds them of Jesus's words when he said, "It is better that you had never been born than you cause one of these little ones to stumble." Or no, he doesn't say never born. He says it is better that a millstone be tied around your neck and you be cast into the sea than you cause one of these little ones to stumble. And writing the Corinthians, he tells them your division is causing people to stumble. And sometimes when we blaze that trail and we cause division within a church, we don't see all of the people who are caught in the crossfire.
Yeah.
And Lord have mercy.
Yeah. On us, right? For the times when we've done that.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and I'm telling you, if somebody wants to leave in a fashion that they are causing division, they're trying to take people with them. We've tried to sit down and talk things out, and they've chosen to, go the way of not being a good follower, not being someone who is practicing discipleship and submission, and they're trying to go above the pastor's heads or whatever, and they're causing division. If they want to be one of those people, then what Polycarp wrote is for them. And so when we say God will deal with that's a scary thought. And if you are possibly on your way to be one of those people where how you're leaving, what you're doing could ruffle feathers and cause division and cause issues, it is better that a millstone be tied around your neck and you be cast into the sea than you go about it in a way that's going to cause division and cause others to stumble. Don't do it. You need to figure it out. You need to figure out a way of doing it peacefully, doing it amicably, and hopefully you can get to a place where that one that I mentioned, where it was a student and they went over and others would have saw it as sheep stealing.
Mm-hmm.
On their last time there with our group, we let everybody know, hey, this is what's happening. They're going over to this ministry. We are sending them. We're not just letting them go. We're not sweeping under the table and say, hush, hush. Nope, we're sending them. We gathered around them. We shared encouraging words and talked to them about how they've been a blessing. We prayed for them to go and be a blessing.
Yeah.
Where they were going. And so it's one of those things to where hopefully you can get to a place where your pastors can, your church can let you go in a peaceful way, in a quiet way that's not causing a bunch of ruffle, but even better, they can send you. They can send you where they can bless you. They can say you've been a blessing here. They don't have to bring up the whole things haven't worked out, but that you've been a blessing here, and we believe you're going to go be a blessing somewhere else, and we want to bless you and pray for you and send you with our prayers and our love.
Yeah. Yeah, I do want to say that's great. I think we should definitely do everything for that. Trying to leave in the most unifying way possible.
Yeah.
I did want to say just really quickly, because I think it's important, that if there's abuse, that is a different story.
Come on now.
We are not saying to sit in abuse and deal with it.
Come on.
That's really important, because that is a different story. And that actually, I think, is where those are the situations where I'm like, the churches as a whole need to know each other and know what's going on. Because if there's abuse happening in the church, which it does happen, because the enemy is crafty and he wants to be in the church causing division.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen in the church, and when we see it, those are the stories that get on line, and it keeps people from coming to Christ, and that's the enemy winning, right?
Yeah.
So there are times when you need to get the heck out of there.
Yeah.
And then you need to bring in the elders of the community
Exactly.
to deal with that, because that's a bigger church issue.
Exactly.
And so that's where I think some of that, some people would be like, don't steal my sheep, because I don't want people to know what's going on in here. And so those are the ones. So know that, like, we understand that that's not.
Yes.
There's the bad way of stealing sheep and stuff, where it's just bad intentions. But then there's also there is other bad things that happen.
Yeah.
That that are good reasons for people to leave.
Yeah.
And so I just want to make sure that that's known, because
Look,
I don't want anybody to think that we don't know that that's happening, first of all, and that also that we're for anybody sitting underneath that, that kind of abuse.
Yeah,
that's different than a disagreement.
Exactly, that is absolutely different, and I'm so glad that you brought that up. Yeah, that is absolutely different than a disagreement. The image that comes to my mind is a sheep that has been getting abused and mistreated, and it runs away, and it comes to the pasture of the fields. Use different words to help out. It comes to the grazing fields of another gathering, another flock, another pastor, shepherd, right? And that shepherd knows that it's been getting abused. He can see, right? He's not going to take that sheep back over to the one that was abusing it.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're not just going to carry that sheep back over there, but at the same time, and I think this is again where unity in the body of Christ, and as you said, like elders in the community, we need to be in communication with each other. We need to have unity with one another, because if you are facing some type of spiritual abuse, number one, you need to hear this. Your church is not the only way to heaven. That is not what Jesus said. Yeah. He did not say your church is the way to heaven. Your denomination is the way to heaven. Your gathering, your pastor is the way to heaven. Jesus is the way to heaven. Is the way. Right? And so don't feel locked in there, first of all. But number one, I say first of all and then number one. But first, don't feel locked in there, first of all. Number two. But then next, right? Number two, don't feel locked in there. But then next, you need to be in community. Unity and being a good follower, being in submission, does not mean going along with abuse. I've talked about before, and I gladly recommend again. There is an author who does great work when it comes to followership. His name is Ira Khalif, and he has written a book called Courageous Followership, which part of that is actually it's standing up for your leadership, but then it's also knowing when, or it's standing up for your leadership, but then it's also knowing when to stand up to your leadership, when to bring correction, when to voice opposition, wrong, right? And that's being a courageous follower is part of that. Part of that whole standing up to, knowing when not to follow, is in what he calls Intelligent Disobedience, which is another book of his, which is heavy, and warning, it's not Christian. It's heavy. It's not Christian. Definite disclaimer on, there is some sensitive stuff in there, or some triggering stuff possibly, especially if you've dealt with any type of abuse. But he talks about in that a good follower, a courageous follower, as we're called to be, Jesus said to follow me. We're called to be followers first, right? Being a disciple is being a follower. We need to know how to follow well. And part of that is knowing when not to follow orders, when not to obey. One of the first things they taught us in the military was you do not obey a unlawful order. Like you will obey, right? And you obey.
Which means you need to know the law, right?
You obey quickly, but when it becomes unlawful, you do not obey, or you will be in trouble for that. You cannot say, he told me to do it. Nope. If you obey an unlawful order, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Right?
So you need to know the law.
So you need to know the law, right?
Yeah.
And so, number one, right, you're not going to stay there. We are not saying to stay there, right, when there's some type of abuse. You are not trapped. That organization is not the only way. That leader is not the only way to heaven. Jesus is the only way. So you're not trapped, number one. Number two, we're not encouraging you to stay there. We're saying that if that is happening, you need to know how to not keep it hush and slide away, but who you should go to, because there's people you should be able to go to. And if that doesn't work, then you go to the next level, and then you go to the next level, right?
Yeah.
Which, number one, if you're at a gathering, you're at, your local congregation, and say the youth pastor, the lead pastor, a pastor, we'll start with like an associate pastor. If an associate pastor is doing dirty stuff, associate pastor is causing abuse, you need to go talk to your lead pastor.
Yeah.
And if your lead pastor doesn't do anything about it, you need to talk to your board. And if your board doesn't do anything about it, then you need to go and find fellowship with another church, and you need to let that pastor know. And this isn't so that you could, spread out the cheese mold, spill and the gossip with everybody. It's a matter of if your pastors are the ones causing issues in a local congregation, the elders that they should have accountability to are the other pastors in the area.
Yeah.
And so what that means is that wherever you end up going, they need to know. And if you find that out as a pastor, then you also have a responsibility there to speak into what's happening, to reach out. And maybe it's you and, a couple of other pastor friends that but you guys need to speak into that.
Yeah.
And if they're not willing to take that correction, scripture talks about that. Again, this is the whole dealing with conflict resolution.
Yeah.
Right? But it's one of those
through
things
the process. You don't just go straight to like, see you later.
Yeah.
Go through the process, trying to go up and bring in more people and then it says bring in the whole church even at the end.
Yeah.
It's like you let, if you can't get through the individuals and talking to them, so don't go to this step first, because that's not the right
exactly
order. It says go to the person first, then bring in a third, then bring in the elders, and then you could bring in the church, and then if they don't listen, then you treat them like a pagan.
Yeah, exactly. And what's it called? And part of this whole like going to one person to, you don't go to the congregation, which means you don't just go start spreading it around the members.
Yeah.
Right. Around other people that attend. The reason why I even gave this whole breakdown of go to the pastor and then go to the board, and because usually that's a board of elders, right?
Yeah.
And then you can invite in, if that's not working, you invite in another local pastor, because as we talked about, that your pastors should be like elders within your community.
Yeah.
Right. And so what you're doing there is you're staying with that second step, right? Yeah. You're staying with that second step. How? And if it goes to a level where, look, the church needs to know, that's now in the elders' hands. That's now in the pastor's hands, all right? And how that's going to, if that needs to go out any further, then that's in the pastor's hands. But you take it to the elders that are able to, and once you're gone from that church, like if that church wasn't handling it, that congregation, their elders, their pastor, whatever, wasn't handling it, leave. And you really don't need to take it any further than the pastor you're under now. Because now you're not there anymore. You can leave it with that pastor and let them handle the issues within the community with the other pastors in the area.
Yep.
Oh man.
Yeah, we got into something I wasn't expecting to go there. But but it's true though. Like, I mean, we need I just thought it was important that we say that because it's important.
Absolutely.
Because that is just true. I actually think that's a really good thing for people just to know.
Yeah.
About the enemy's attack within the church.
Yeah.
It's there. We can't ignore that.
Yeah.
We can't say that the enemy's not within the church because he is.
Yep.
And the Bible even says he masquerades as an angel of light. Like he will come as a sheep or a wolf in sheep's clothing. Yeah. Wolf in sheep's clothing.
Exactly.
And he will try to get in where he can cause the most destruction.
Exactly.
And we see that. We see how that happens, and many people lose their faith over it. But that's important to recognize that we're not fighting against flesh and blood. We're fighting against spiritual principalities and evils in the dark places, and so he's trying to get in there, and he's successful sometimes, unfortunately, and a lot of times it's because there's not enough accountability.
Exactly.
There's not enough people coming alongside and making sure that that's not happening.
Yeah. Accountability is how we snuff those things out, because you can have people within the church that are well-meaning, really trying to live for and serve God, and then they get caught up in a sin, and now the devil has a foothold. And it's not that they've become the devil incarnate, and they're just wolves, and they're in there to destroy, but they have a sin that has gotten the best of them, and it could lead to hurting others. And without accountability, that sin won't be addressed.
Yeah.
It's kind of like David and Nathan, where David had a sin that got the best of him.
Yeah.
And
that's probably the best thing any person in ministry, which is a lot of people that are on this podcast. You should have someone you can be accountable to.
Absolutely.
Because it'll help you. It'll help you avoid the arrows of the enemy.
Exactly. And that's why I say, like, even with that, you have the going to another pastor, and you join another congregation, you let that pastor know. Hopefully, the issue that was happening wasn't a level of abuse where it was something physical or sexual, where it was like a legal, you need the law enforcement type of matter.
Right. But you can go to law enforcement,
right?
In that case.
But let's say it was, and you went all the way through that process, and nobody's listening to you and whatnot. At that point, we need you and that pastor need to work towards bringing law enforcement in on that.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons why we say the pastors should almost be like elders within the community that can hold each other accountable. Hopefully, there's relationship there. Hopefully, they're able to do that. But most congregations are also part of some type of affiliation, some type of network.
Yeah.
And that should be able to, from that pastor, get to that network that usually has some type of accountability over them.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's the case. Oh,
accountability is important. That's
absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely. So when it comes to stealing sheep, to stealing sheep, we see that unity really helps in the aspect of making it to where one stealing sheep in an unhealthy fashion can get checked by the community. That, especially when it's somebody leaving from the congregation in an unhealthy way and saying, come with me, or someone playing dirty and trying to take other people's church. Like, there should be some type of accountability within the community, especially among ministers, that can approach that situation and say, this is not right. This needs to adjust. And then we also see there shouldn't be an effort or intention of trying to take other people's sheep. That's dirty. Now you're playing a numbers game. You're trying to get other people's things without going the healthy route. If you want somebody else's worship leader Like you want to worship, you want someone who's helping with worship over here at this church, then you don't just call up that worship leader sneakily and be like, hey, I can pay you more and this and that. And you would
Yeah, it
love,
sounds
you would
like
love
something, right?
you would
Sounds
love to
like
mission more here.
sounds like one of the 10 Commandments a little bit.
Right. Don't covet
Don't
what
covet
belongs
and
to your
don't
neighbor,
steal.
right? Don't covet your neighbor's sheep, right? And so but with that, that healthy way of going about that would be actually reaching out to that pastor. And if that pastor's
or
like
or pastors as a whole.
Yeah.
That's it. Like if you have a network, you could be like, hey guys,
yeah,
our church needs this and this and this.
Boom.
Like, do you have anybody that has a heart for starting something new and being a part of something
exactly
that's growing? And would you just put that out and then let God do the work? Because he'll put it on the hearts of the people that it needs to be on the hearts of when you do it that way.
Exactly. So, man. So we have to trust God and building his church and not be trying to steal sheep for numbers. And when it comes to the other side of things of, there's relationship and people are moving around. Don't take it personal. Don't look at it as this person's the enemy. But
be okay with sending and sharing.
Be okay with sending. Be okay with sending. And bless them as they go. See it as, they're still under the shepherd. They may be roaming with a different under shepherd, but they're still under the shepherd. It's a transfer within the organization, not outside of it. The larger organization as the church.
Yeah, the larger church.
Yep.
The big C.
Yes, sir.
As we say.
Yes. So, we're coming up on time. Any final thoughts?
Well, I think it's something we just need to be aware of.
Yeah.
And we need to be honest with. And, again, if I just reiterate the kind of the main thing that I feel like was the theme of what we talked about is communication.
Yep.
Communicating with other churches when people are moving back and forth, knowing the rest of the community, communicating through conflict, communicating through struggles with your church. And that's more between you and the people that are leading the church in your congregation, and then communication with dealing with some of the bad things too.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like that was the common theme there.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Because, the enemy is the king of assumptions.
Yes.
And driving us to assumption land. And even just with that, just take the first one of those, like someone stealing or someone went to another youth group or another church. And we assume that they were stolen.
Yeah.
Or we assume that they didn't like us, or we assume that whatever. Just insert the blank of what our assumptions are.
Yep.
And those tend to lead to more disunifying things, where communication eliminates those assumptions.
Exactly.
So if you're the person leaving, like even if a kid did this, that would be great. And I'm going over to this other youth group because of this, and this.
Don't make something up.
So I don't have to make something up in my mind about why they're leaving, because they told me.
Yeah.
And that could be true for the bigger churches. A lot of people just don't say anything to anybody, and then they're out. And then everybody's like, well, what happened? And so even just the little communication there, even if it's a bad thing, like just communicating so that because then it can be addressed.
Yep.
And then same all the way through all that stuff. People tend to assume the worst. So
yeah, no, absolutely. Oh man, so yeah, that communication is key. Us having unity and relationship with one another really helps to keep these things from getting out of hand and causing issues and causing more control or more ruckus. It really helps.
Just like a marriage, right?
It is. I know, right? It's weird.
That happens a lot in marriage,
right? But yeah, it's one of those things to where if we are practicing unity then the whole concern of stealing sheep becomes a lot less.
Yeah.
Because there's so much unity buffering that and keeping that from becoming a big issue. And so usually, I mean, it's miscommunication, it's pride, it's ill intent sometimes, like with the abuse and purposefully stealing. And all of these things should be addressed when the body is eager to maintain unity. We address pride. We address the miscommunications. We address the ill intent, and we have accountability because there's relationship for that. So if you want to overcome some sheep stealing issues in your community,
be a unifier.
Be a unifier. Help the church in your community be more unified, both individual gatherings and the church as a whole in your community. Help it to be more unified, and that will definitely help with those issues.
For sure.
Yep. And as we talk about that, I mean, you have that comes with trying to practice good leadership and sharpening each other for that, right? Which is, again, one of the reasons why discipleship and mentorship is important, which we talked about. So check that out. And then same thing with the followership, having good followership. It's not as glamorized and romantic of a word, but it is more important than, I'm just going to say it. Some might not agree. It's more important than leadership within our faith, because that's what we're called to do, is we're called to follow. So we need to know how to practice that well. And part of that is knowing how to address issues within that are happening, and be able to do that in a way that's not just throwing a grenade on things, but address it the right way, but make sure that issues do get addressed, that when not to follow, when something needs to change, and then knowing when you need to submit and humble thyself and not throw a big hissy fit because they changed out the curriculum in the children's church, where the main feature isn't Noah's flood anymore, and now they're talking about Daniel in the lion's den. Like, it's still the Bible, okay? It's still the Bible. Did you ever notice how usually nurseries, like the little kids, either nurseries or toddlers, their theme is usually Noah's flood?
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed that, but usually it's the little kids.
No.
Either nursery or maybe like the ones right after the nursery.
Because of the boat and the animals.
Yeah, and it's usually
that makes sense.
It's because
or Daniel
of the
and the Lions Den.
because of the animals, but
you get the lions, just kids like animals.
I find it ironic that's the theme we go with, And I know it's the boat and the animals, but I'm just thinking this is when God wiped out all of humanity. Right?
Yeah, they don't usually focus as much on that part.
No, we don't, right? We don't focus on the mass carnage outside of the boat.
The floating bodies. It's not high on the list.
Can you imagine, like, somebody's like, no, we're gonna do a realistic Noah's Ark
for kids' church,
and they have a bunch of bodies floating all in the water.
Oh man.
Oh gosh.
That'd be something.
That'd be scary. But anyways, I digress.
We digress. Everybody's like, where did that come from? That's good.
So
we need to.
If that's what you're disagreeing with at a church, then I can understand. Like, I just can't get behind this one. The body's floating on the children's walls. So I can understand if you need to step out, but do it in a way where it's peaceful and you're not causing division.
Now, if someone does want to do a live action of the reality of Noah,
gosh,
then maybe you might want to leave.
Right? Yeah, I know, right? Like, we're gonna reenact this.
Be like, can we get some discernment?
I found a way to make the whole sanctuary where it's waterproof and it won't leak. Oh gosh. Okay. All right. Anyways, any final thoughts?
Nope. I think that was it.
I think that was it. Noah's flood. All right. Noah's Ark. That was it.
The other things I said.
Yeah. Unity is a big buffer on that. So we encourage you, we challenge you, be part of the conversation. Continue this going. This doesn't need to end here with this episode. Comment, like, share, subscribe, talk with us, be a unifier and in your community and let us know how we can help and talk with us. We want to continue that conversation. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit, you may abound in hope. Thank you so much for joining us on the In Hope podcast today. Remember to like, subscribe, share, join this conversation and invite others to this conversation.
And if you would like to be a part of our ministry moving forward, we would love to have you jump on our support team. And you can find that on the website.